Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely dark, alternate timeline crossover event that literally changes everything we thought we knew about the Bakugan universe. We're looking at a scenario that takes the familiar, everyday mechanics of the game and introduces this interdimensional parasitic threat that just completely rewrites the stakes. We aren't just talking about losing a match or even losing a Bakugan anymore. We're talking about the permanent loss of the brawlers themselves. So we start our investigation with the total mystery. For those of you who follow the timeline super closely, you know there's this unexplained absence of a beloved core brawler right after the events of the first two seasons. Now sure, brawlers come and go, priorities shift, and stepping away from the arena really isn't unheard of, right? But the chilling truth behind Alice Gehabich's disappearance? Yeah, it wasn't a peaceful retirement. It's something far, far more sinister that the rest of the brawling world honestly didn't understand until it was way too late. Just take a look at this before and after contrast. It really lays bare the terrifying, irreversible reality of what happens when a brawler crosses paths with the interdimensional parasite known as Starro. On one side, you have the brawler we all knew, and on the other, something else entirely. It's a permanent transformation that doesn't just steal a player from the game, it actually weaponizes them against their former allies. It's honestly heartbreaking.
Let's get right into Section 1, the disappearance of Alice.
Okay, let's establish exactly who we're talking about here and how her sudden withdrawal from the public eye masked this much broader tragedy that would eventually set the tone for a completely terrifying new era of battles. If you're familiar with her record, you know Alice was this polite, highly intuitive strategist. She actually hated violence, which, is pretty fascinating for a brawler. But she possessed these absolutely incredible analytical battle skills. She didn't just fight with sheer reckless aggression. She observed, she adapted, and she countered. She was literally the anchor for her team's strategies, and that right there is exactly why her eventual loss mattered so much to the broader narrative.
When she vanished from the circuit, there really weren't any red flags right away. She just stopped answering calls. Her darkest partner was never seen in official battles again. There was no grand announcement, no loss recorded on any of the official ledgers, no body, no confirmation, literally just silence. Her disappearance wasn't a choice, guys. It was the direct result of an unsanctioned, unrecorded battle that took place completely out of the public eye.
Which brings us to Section 2, a quiet, permanent defeat.
You see, the climax of her story wasn't some massive, explosive arena showdown with roaring crowds. It was this methodical and unnervingly quiet loss that basically changes the rules of engagement forever. Enter Starro Boy, the willing human agent of the Starro Hive intelligence. He targeted Alice very selectively. During their battle, he didn't try to overpower her or win quickly. Instead, he systematically pressured her. He stalled the game and funneled her into this incredibly narrow set of moves. He basically backed the ultimate strategist right into a corner. As he so confidently noted during these encounters, the battle was decided before the final card was even played.
So when Alice finally lost, standard Bakugan rules would usually just dictate a simple withdrawal. But here, a Starro spore descended immediately, and there was no dramatic struggle, no screaming. The parasite simply molded to her face like it was always meant to be there. And then, she very calmly spoke her final free words, "The battle is over." From that exact moment on, she was no longer Alice.
Moving on to Section 3, Rules of Starro Control.
What's really wild about this crossover is how it establishes a super strict, almost clinical codification of how mind control operates in this universe. It creates a totally new paradigm for what it actually means to lose. We aren't talking about mindless zombies wandering around here. This defines a recognized state where former allies are permanently overwritten. But, and this is key, they retain all of their champion-level combat skills. They're no longer victims waiting in some cell to be rescued. They are permanent, highly capable assets for the enemy, and they execute strategies flawlessly without the burden of hesitation or fear.
At first, the heroes totally assumed they could handle this, right? I mean, in previous seasons, mind control was just a temporary obstacle. Masks could be shattered. Spells could be broken by the power of friendship and strong bonds. But they were tragically mistaken here. The grim reality of the Starro crossover is that the control is permanent. There's no dramatic recovery arc. It is complete, irreversible obedience. They honestly tried absolutely everything to save her and the others who fell. But look at this laundry list of failures. Energy disruption? Did nothing. Gate card inversion? Completely useless. And the most terrifying part is what happens when they actually try brute force to remove the spore. The host doesn't scream in pain. Instead, any attempt to physically touch the parasite causes the host to immediately defend themselves flawlessly, moving with this inhuman, perfect coordination to protect their new master. There's just no way through.
Let's look at Section 4, Psychological Over-Body Horror.
The visual design of these controlled brawlers is so specifically crafted to maximize emotional devastation. It's not about blood or gore. It's all about the corruption of the familiar. This is the canonical rule of a Starro-controlled brawler. The spore seals perfectly over the upper face, totally wiping out the eyes and nose, but very deliberately, the mouth remains visible so they can speak and communicate orders. Their hair, their ears, their posture, it all remains completely untouched. The true horror here is that they don't turn into grotesque monsters. From behind, they look exactly like the friend you knew. They dress normally, they stand normally, they are just permanently overwritten.
Any trace of expression the brawler once had is completely replaced by this single, unblinking red eye. When they step up to face their former friends in the arena, there's no trash talk anymore. There's no anger. There's literally only a cold, steady voice delivering commands and the chilling stare of that central eye just monitoring the battlefield.
The real kicker? They are still alive in there. They are still physically present, but they are no longer free. Just imagine knowing your best friend is trapped right beneath that parasite while you are forced to fight them. It's a quiet, heavy rule that preserves their identity just enough to make every single encounter a deeply painful psychological blow. The heroes aren't just fighting villains, they're forced to fight the ghosts of their friends.
And that brings us to Section 5, a chilling new reality.
Let's look at how all of this builds into a totally new set of stakes for the Bakugan universe as the crossover progresses. The whole landscape just becomes unrecognizable. Starboy uses these targeted conversions, often picking highly visible female brawlers like Alice, specifically for the psychological intimidation factor it brings to the rest of the resistance. He avoids the loud, flashy arenas, just picking off targets quietly in the shadows. Winning against him isn't a guaranteed safety net, and losing equals permanent conversion. And because your former teammates return as highly coordinated enemy agents, the rules of the season completely change. Stepping into the arena wasn't about winning a fun game anymore. Avoidance became just as important as victory, because every single battle was a gamble with permanent, life-altering consequences.
Which really brings us to the ultimate question of this entire crossover. Alice Gehabich was the strategic backbone of her team, a brilliant mind who could analyze absolutely every angle. And she was taken down without a fight, reduced to a quiet, obedient asset. So we want to leave you with this chilling thought. In a world where a single defeat means losing your identity forever, and where your closest friends return to hunt you with perfect precision, is it even worth it to keep fighting? Think about that the next time you step up to the arena. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.